U.S and other agencies were involved in the seizure of an oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela. He says it was connected to terrorist organizations. In response, the Venezuelan regime called the seizure blatant theft. Tensions are running high between President Trump and Venezuelan regime leader Nicolas Maduro. Trump recently said Maduro's days are numbered. And joining us now is Taylor Hawthorne, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum's Center for American Safety and Security. Taylor, the FBI says the supertanker skipper carrying Venezuelan oil was used in an illicit shipping network supporting foreign terrorist organizations. Exactly what role do you think it was playing in that operation?
I first want to just give a big shout out to the 2nd Recon Battalion and the work that they did, and the FBI and the Coast Guard. I think that this forfeiture was really quick. The seizure was quick, and they did a really good and professional job. So I want to give those guys a shout out. I also think that it's hilarious that Maduro is calling this theft when the tanker wasn't even flying under the Venezuelan flag. So I think it's hilarious that he has the audacity to say something like that. But I think this drives home a larger point that I've been trying to prove for a couple of weeks now since this conflict really rose to the surface, is that this has more to do than just our relationship with Venezuela. This really has to do with the relationship that Venezuela has with the IRGC, with Iran, with China, and several of our other adversaries, and the work that they are doing to sponsor terrorism throughout the world that is unfortunately reaching our hemisphere now.
I understand what you're saying. Now, Guyana's maritime authority said on Wednesday that the tanker was falsely flying Guyana's flag. If that's the case, it seems the tanker was trying to fly under the radar. Is that how you're reading this?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, I think that if Venezuela was being bold about it, then they wouldn't have any good intel agencies of their own. This is a tanker that we have been tracking in a black fleet for quite some time, that has been supporting some proxies of terrorism, that has been getting oil to and from Iran, that has been suspected of supporting China and some of their operations. And we know the relationship that China and Russia have and Iran has. So, I mean, I think that if Venezuela were bold enough to be flying this tanker under their flag, I would have some severe questions.
Well, I understand. That makes sense. Now, in a recent interview with Fox News, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that the Venezuelan regime is essentially being used as a transshipment organization for cocaine sourced in Colombia. Is Venezuela playing a lead role in drug trafficking in our Western Hemisphere?
I definitely believe that they are, but I also think that if you're looking at drug trafficking, we really need to focus on Mexico. The picture with Venezuela here is more about transnational terrorism and the relationships that Venezuela and Maduro are choosing to have with some of our foreign adversaries. I mean, I've said from the beginning of this conflict that this is really about putting a spotlight on the United States relationship and strength in the Western Hemisphere, and putting China and other adversaries on notice that it's one thing we're battling you in the East, but if you bring it to the West, we're not going to let our foot off the gas. And it's really kind of flexing our capabilities and our powers, and letting China know that for whatever role they have in this conflict and with Venezuela, that we're watching.
And Taylor, why now? Why is all this happening now? We have a new president in the White House. In terms of all these drug boats being destroyed, in terms of this tanker incident,
I don't think that this is anything that the tankers and the drug boats are anything new. This has been happening. I mean, this one particular vessel is said to have transported over 13 million barrels of oil since 2021. And so this is not something new that's happening. We just finally have an administration in place that is putting the priority of the safety and security of Americans and of the Western Hemisphere at the forefront of their administration's priorities. And so a lot of this seems like, you know, there are more conflicts taking place, and that, you know, the left's narrative is that Trump is involved in bringing more conflicts to the surface. But I think whenever you bring ills to the surface and you start taking care of them and you start dealing with and addressing conflict, it's going to seem like there is more conflict going on. But I think that addressing this conflict is really going to lead to the reduction of conflict overall, and is going to lead to the increase of safety and security for American citizens.
I'm following your logic. Now, it's reported that China is Venezuela's biggest oil buyer. Do you think the Trump administration's actions toward Venezuela will impact the Chinese Communist Party's foreign policy goals?
No. I think they're going to continue doing whatever China wants to do, but I think that at least, she and the rest of the Chinese Communist Party or Beijing, whichever way they want to label themselves, I think that at least puts them on notice that President Trump will work with them in many areas, but there are certain lines that they cannot cross. And when it impacts the security of American citizens, this is where the line is.
Okay, and also something important to note here. In a recent interview, Trump didn't give a direct answer on how far he would go to oust Nicolas Maduro, but he said his days are numbered. Where do you see this going?
President Trump will work with anyone. I mean, I think we've seen that since he announced his presidency, 10 years ago, or his candidacy for presidency. He'll work with anyone. But I think he's really getting tired of the hubris of Maduro, because the difference in Maduro and a lot of these other leaders that Trump has been working with, these other leaders seem very level-headed. They seem very clear on what their goals and their initiatives are. Maduro just seems very hubristic, very egotistical, very narcissistic, and very out for himself. I mean, you would see the prospering of Venezuelan citizens if he really cared about his country and he cared about his nation's people. And so Maduro is really unhinged. And I think at a certain point, Trump is going to get to a point with Maduro where he's like, this isn't a dude that I'm going to deal with, and it's not worth bothering with. And he's going to allow whatever the Venezuelan citizens wants to do to kind of take over. So I do think that the president is right. Maduro's days are numbered. Whether that is Maduro's choice to self-deselect and find a new home or not is really up to Maduro.
I'm noting all your points, and thank you for coming on. I mean, Venezuela used to be a very wealthy nation, resource rich, and look at it now, but you bring a lot of food for thought to the table. Taylor Hathorn, thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, Washington State is under a state of emergency following days